You crashed my car, he screamed in my face, then landed the first punch right there on the driveway. The Ring doorbell recording everything. Blood dripped onto the concrete while his Lexus sat mangled at the end of the street, but nobody knew where the spare key was. Except me. That night, the whole neighborhood received the apology video he demanded I post, only it wasn't the version he expected. When the screen froze at 2:13:47 meme. Everyone went silent, even my mother. And that was just the opening move in a plan involving spreadsheets, timestamps, and a backup drive. My name is Riley Monroe, and I've been keeping receipts on my stepfather for 3 years, digital ones, timestamped down to the second. 7:41 p.m. Sunday. I pulled my Civic into our Maple Ridge driveway after a 12-hour shift at Larkspur Logistics, coordinating routes for the weekend rush. The garage door rolled up to reveal an empty space where Darren's silver Lexus should have been. Only a long, black skid mark stretched across the concrete, fresh rubber that hadn't been there this morning. The smell hit me first when I stepped inside motor oil mixed with something chemical. Mom stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, her hands wringing a dish towel into knots. Mason had his phone out, pretending to scroll through TikTok, but I caught the red recording light reflected in the microwave door. "Don't," Mom whispered, but she wasn't talking to me. 8:06 p.m. Darren's truck roared up the driveway, not the Lexus, but his work vehicle from the tow yard. He stumbled getting out, bourbon and gasoline creating a toxic cloud around him. His work shirt hung untucked, stained with something dark. "You." His finger jabbed toward me like a weapon. "You crashed my car and tried to run." I hadn't touched his Lexus. My dashcam footage would prove I'd been at work since 7 a.m. But Darren was already advancing. Mom pressed herself against the wall. Mason's phone trembled as he kept recording. "The whole neighborhood saw you speeding." "I was at work." My voice stayed level, a skill learned from 3 years of his explosions. "Check my time card." "Don't lie to me." The first punch caught my shoulder as I turned. The second split my lip against the garage door frame. I could have fought back National Guard training doesn't just disappear, but I had a better plan. I let myself fall onto the driveway, directly in the Ring doorbell's field of view. 8:07 p.m. Darren grabbed my work badge, yanking me up. "You think you're smart? Think you're better than me." Mrs. Hallie's porch light flicked on across the street. Another neighbor's door cracked open. The Maple Watch group chat would be lighting up. I could practically hear the notification pings. "There's paint from my car all over your bumper." He shoved me back down, my knee scraping concrete. "You're gonna pay for every cent of damage." Through the blood in my mouth, I watched his work truck at the curb. The tow lights were still flashing amber. The lift assembly had fresh scratches, and hanging from his key ring the Lexus fob he claimed he couldn't find this morning when Mom needed grocery money. "Stand up." He kicked at my ribs, missed, hit the recycling bin instead. "You're going to apologize to everyone. Post it online. Tell them what you did." I looked up at the black dome of our doorbell camera, counting frames in my head. Everything was being uploaded to the cloud, plus my personal NAS server, plus the cold storage drive hidden in the garage rafters. Triple redundancy, a habit from handling logistics data that turned out to have other uses. 8:09 p.m. The sound came first backup beepers from the end of our street. Then the amber lights sweeping across suburban lawns. A flatbed from Darren's own tow yard rounded the corner, carrying something covered with a blue tarp. Darren's face went white. He stepped back from me, suddenly aware of the growing audience. Mrs. Hallie stood on her lawn with her phone raised. The Martinez family had come out to walk their dog. Even teenage Mason had moved to the garage doorway, still filming. "Get inside," Darren hissed at me, but his voice cracked. "This isn't over." I stayed on the ground, letting the doorbell camera capture my split lip, the blood on the concrete, his work boots inches from my face. The tow truck had stopped 3 houses down, the driver looking confused, checking his phone. I said get inside, but I didn't move. Not yet. Because I knew something Darren didn't. The Lexus under that blue tarp had damage consistent with a 213A joyride, not an 8P hit and run. The timestamp on his own dashcam would prove it, if he hadn't been smart enough to destroy it. Lucky for me, he wasn't that smart, and the backup files were already safe on my server. The garage had always been my domain. While Darren spent weekends drinking with his tow yard buddies, I'd installed my surveillance network piece by piece. 2-channel dashcam in the Civic, hardwired to run 24/7, Ring doorbell with the premium cloud subscription, internal garage camera hidden behind old paint cans, motion activated and infrared capable. Everything fed to a NAS server in my room and backed up to a cold storage drive sealed in weatherproof casing, tucked behind Christmas decorations in the rafters. 3 years ago, I'd started it as a security project, something to do with my guard electronics training. But after Darren moved in and Mom started having accidents with her credit cards, it became something else. Project Brimstone, according to the encrypted spreadsheet on my laptop. I cataloged everything. November 3rd, 2022. Darren borrowed $800 for truck repairs that never happened. January 15th, 23. Mom's jewelry box mysteriously emptied while we were at work. April through September that year. 6 incidents of him screaming at Mason until the kid locked himself in his room. Each entry had timestamps, descriptions, and when possible, video or audio files. Now, sitting on my bed with an ice pack pressed to my lip, I pulled up the master spreadsheet. Row 437 tonight's assault. But more interesting was row 436, logged automatically by my system at 2:18 a.m. This morning motion detected in garage, Lexus departing. My phone buzzed. Ava Torres, my closest friend at Larkspur and conveniently, our HR manager. Saw the neighborhood group chat, she texted. Mrs. Hallie posted asking if anyone else heard the disturbance. You okay? Define okay, I typed back. Hypothetically, if someone needed FMLA documentation for domestic violence, what's the process? 3 dots appeared immediately. Hypothetically, they'd need a police report, medical documentation, and I'd fast-track it with paid leave. Want me to start hypothetically preparing paperwork? Yes. Mom knocked on my door, 2 soft taps. Our code for he's in the garage. I found her in the hallway, shoulders hunched like she was trying to disappear into the wallpaper. You need to apologize, she whispered. Just tell him you're sorry about the car. We can work out payments. Mom, I was at work. My time card shows. It doesn't matter what's true. Her voice cracked. You know how he gets. The whole neighborhood watching made it worse. Just apologize and this goes away. I studied her face, 52 years old but looking 60. Gray roots showing through drugstore dye. Worry lines carved deep. She'd been beautiful once, before Dad died, before the bills piled up, before she'd married Darren for stability. I have it on video, I said carefully. Him hitting me. Her face went white. You can't show that to anyone. What would people think? The HOA is already what? Nothing. Just, please, Riley. For me, this was the cycle. Him exploding, me documenting, her begging me to pretend it never happened. But tonight felt different. The Lexus situation was sloppy, desperate, and Darren had made a critical error. He'd done it in public. I opened my laptop and showed her 1 frame from the garage camera, just the timestamp from this morning. 2:13:47 Lexus backing out. I didn't touch his car. Mom. She stared at the screen. Processing. But there's damage on your Civic's bumper. He showed me. Paint transfer from when Mrs. Chen scraped me in the Safeway parking lot last month. I have the security footage and her insurance information. Different color than Darren's Lexus Arctic White versus silver metallic? Mom sank onto my desk chair. He set you up. The question is why? I minimized the surveillance footage and pulled up our bank's website. Can you check if he made any large withdrawals recently? She logged in with shaking fingers. The checking account that should have had $3,000 held $72. The savings was empty. The credit card she'd hidden for emergencies was maxed. "The Vegas trip," she whispered. "He said he won big." But the credit card statement told a different story. Cash advances at casinos, strip club charges, a $5,000 payment to someone named Tony Toretti that same night. Probably a bookie. Darren had gambled away everything and needed someone to blame for the Lexus to collect insurance money. "We need to separate your finances," I said. "Tonight. Before he does anything else." "I can't. He already did. Mom, it's done." "Now we protect what's left." My phone buzzed again. Mason had sent a video file via encrypted message. "Thought you might want this. Caught him setting up the paint smear this morning at 6:52 A." I smiled, despite my split lip. My little brother was learning. The footage showed Darren with a crowbar and a can of white paint, carefully applying it to my bumper while looking over his shoulder. 3 years of spreadsheets, hundreds of hours of footage, and now, finally, Darren had given me everything I needed to end this. The timestamp burned into my retinas, 2:13:47 a.m. I'd pulled the footage from 3 different angles. The street camera caught the Lexus weaving down Maple Ridge Drive. The intersection cam showed it jumping the curb, and the traffic light at Foster Road recorded the final impact with the steel bollard. Darren behind the wheel, clear as day in the infrared. I sat in my Civic at 3 a.m. Parked 2 blocks from where they'd towed the Lexus. The lot was supposed to be secure, but Darren had given me the gate code months ago when he'd needed someone to cover his shift. He never changed it, typical Darren, too arrogant to think anyone would cross him. The Lexus looked worse under the floodlights. Front end crumpled, airbags deployed, driver's side mirror hanging by wires. The dash cam was smashed but still in place, its memory card tucked behind shattered plastic. Darren had hit it with something hammer. Probably, but he'd only destroyed the screen. I wore latex gloves for my emergency kit, the kind I kept for roadside repairs. The memory card popped out easily. Darren hadn't thought to remove it, just beat on the camera unit until it looked dead. But these cards are tougher than people think. I'd recovered data from worse. Back in my car, I slotted the card into my laptop, corrupted files mostly, but the partition table was intact. A little recovery software magic and there it was, 2:09 a.m. to 2:14 a.m. Darren leaving O'Malley's bar, stumbling to the Lexus. 2:12 a.m. Him sideswiping a mailbox on Elm Street. 2:13:47 a.m. The final impact. But the audio was the real gold. Darren on his phone at 2:15 a.m. Still sitting in the wrecked car. "Yeah, Tommy, need a quiet tow. No paperwork. I'll say it happened tomorrow. Blame the kid. Just get here." Tommy Toretti, the same last name as the Vegas bookie. Darren's network of small-time criminals, all covering for each other. My phone buzzed. Mason, texting from his room. He's awake, stumbling around garage. I drove home carefully. Memory card secured in my pocket. The original stayed in my jacket, but within an hour, I'd uploaded copies to 3 different cloud services, my NAS, and the cold storage drive. 6:52 a.m. I watched from my bedroom window as Darren enacted his plan. He'd sobered up enough to be methodical, pushing over paint cans to create evidence of my reckless driving, using a pry bar to transfer white paint from Mrs. Kim's fence onto my bumper. He even scattered some broken Lexus taillight plastic near my usual parking spot. The detail that would damn him. He wore the same clothes from last night. Visible blood alcohol stains on his shirt from where he'd spilled beer in the car. The garage camera caught it all in crisp 4K resolution. Mom found me reviewing the footage on my laptop. Her coffee mug shook as she watched Darren methodically frame me. "He's done this before," she said quietly. At his last job in Portland, his ex-wife, Sarah, she called me once, warned me, said he'd blamed her for stealing from his company when it was him the whole time. "Why didn't you leave?" "Where would we go? Mason's still in school. The house is underwater on the mortgage." And Darren said Sarah was crazy, vindictive. She trailed off, seeing the parallel. 7:30 a.m. Darren started his performance, called his insurance company, voice shaking with false indignation. My stepdaughter took my car without permission. Drunk, probably. Look at the damage to her vehicle, paint transfer everywhere. But insurance investigators aren't stupid. They'd want police reports, timestamps, witness statements. And I had something Darren didn't know about metadata. Every modern car records event data. Every camera stamps its files. Every cell tower logs connections. Darren thought destroying the physical dashcam was enough, but the Lexus's own computer had recorded the impact at 2:13:47 a.m., along with his seatbelt being fastened, the driver's seat in his position, and the key fob ID matching his primary set. I opened a new spreadsheet, evidence chain for insurance fraud case. 43 pieces of data that proved Darren was driving, 16 showing him framing me. 8 documenting his conspiracy with Tommy Toretti. "What are you going to do?" Mom asked. I looked at my split lip in my phone's camera, already purple and swollen. "I'm going to give him exactly what he asked for a public apology video, just not the version he expects." The HOA's Facebook group already had 57 comments about the domestic disturbance. Mrs. Halley had posted 3 times asking for all parties to seek mediation through proper channels. The neighbors were watching, waiting. Good. I wanted an audience for what came next. I pulled up the auto-upload from the Lexus's backup camera, one Darren didn't even know existed, installed by the manufacturer for parking assistance. It had captured him perfectly at 2:13:47 a.m. Face clear in the backup screen's glow as he reversed away from the bollard, stumbling out to inspect the damage. "Riley," Mom said, "be careful." When he's cornered. "He's not the only one with friends in useful places," I said, thinking of Ava in HR, Deputy Sloan, who'd responded to 3 previous domestic calls, and Jordan Pike, the lawyer who'd been begging me to file charges for 2 years. Darren had given me the perfect storm insurance fraud. DUI, assault, false police reports, all documented, time-stamped, and backed up in triplicate. The Lexus was just the beginning. The insurance adjuster's name was Bradley Moss, and he sounded tired when I called at 8:30 a.m. Monday morning. "Ms. Monroe, your stepfather already filed a claim stating you were driving. I have dashcam footage from my Civic showing I was at work from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. yesterday." I interrupted. "I'm filing my own claim for the fraudulent damage he caused to my vehicle this morning at 6:52 a.m. when he vandalized it with white paint to frame me." Silence. Then, "You have video of this, multiple angles." "I'm sending them now, along with metadata from the Lexus's EDR showing him driving at 2:13:47 a.m. when the actual crash occurred." I could hear rapid typing. "These are serious allegations. We'll need to investigate. Check the policy history. Has Darren Carter filed suspicious claims before?" More typing. A long pause. "I can't discuss other claims, but please send all documentation you have, immediately." While uploading files to State Farm's portal, I composed an email from a burner account to the Maple Watch HOA group. Subject line: "Question about late-night crash on Foster Road. Did anyone else hear the accident around 2:15 this morning? There's a damaged bollard at Foster and Main. Silver car paint all over it. Just curious since some are saying it happened at 8 p.m. Last night, attached was a 15-second clip from the intersection camera, just enough to show a silver Lexus hitting the post. Timestamp clearly visible. License plate slightly blurred, but recognizable to anyone who knew Darren's car. Mrs. Halley responded within 3 minutes. "This is concerning. I'll check my ring footage." Then the dominoes started falling. Tom Martinez. "My security system caught a tow truck on our street around 2:30 a.m. Jennifer Walsh. "Was someone drinking and driving? Should we involve the police?" I switched screens to monitor Darren's Facebook. He'd posted his version 20 minutes ago. "My ungrateful stepdaughter stole and wrecked my car, then tried to hide it. Some people don't deserve second chances." 40 comments already. most sympathetic. But I created another burner account and posted the full 2-minute dashcam video showing him drunkenly crashing, then calling for the illegal tow. Interesting perspective. Darren. Here's what actually happened. My phone rang. Deputy Sloan. Riley, I just saw the HOA posts, combined with the ring footage from last night's assault. I need you to come file a report. Bring everything. Already on my way. The sheriff's substation smelled like burnt coffee and industrial disinfectant. Deputy Sloan, a veteran who'd seen too many domestic cases go bad, reviewed my evidence with growing concern. This is DUI, insurance fraud, assault, filing a false report. He counted on his fingers. Do you feel safe at home? No. I can execute an emergency protective order. It'll require him to surrender firearms and stay away for 72 hours while you pursue a permanent restraining order. He has a hunting rifle in the garage and a handgun in his truck. Sloan nodded, making notes. We'll handle that today. Now, about pressing charges. Yes, all of them. While Sloan processed paperwork, I texted Jordan Pike. Ready to move forward. Can you see me today? Been waiting for this text for 2 years. My office, 2 p.m. Jordan's law office occupied a restored Victorian near the courthouse. He'd handled Mom's co-worker's divorce and seen the bruises she'd tried to hide. He'd been quietly building a file ever since. Assault, documented. Insurance fraud, documented. Financial abuse. He reviewed my spreadsheets. Christ, Riley, he's stolen $40,000 over 3 years. That we can prove. Probably more. Your mother will need to file separately for the financial crimes, but the assault and fraud are enough for criminal prosecution. The insurance company will likely pursue their own charges. And civilly, he smiled, defamation for the Facebook posts, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress. We can bury him. I want the house protected. Mom's name is on the deed, not his. Already thinking ahead. We'll file for exclusive use pending the criminal cases. He'll have to find somewhere else to live. I sat in my Civic watching Darren's tow truck pull into our driveway. Deputy Sloan's cruiser followed 30 seconds later, along with a backup unit. The neighborhood watched as they served the EPO. Darren's voice carried across the street. This is bullshit. She crashed my car. Sir, we have video evidence suggesting otherwise. You need to come with us to answer some questions about a DUI incident. I want a lawyer. That's your right, sir. But first, we need to secure your weapons per the protective order. Mrs. Halley stood on her lawn with her phone out, live streaming to the HOA page. The comments rolled in real-time shock, vindication from those who'd suspected. Apologies to me for believing Darren's initial story. Mom texted from inside. He's being arrested. They're reading him his rights. Mason added, got the whole thing recorded. This is better than YouTube. But the best part was Darren's face when Deputy Sloan held up his phone, showing the dashcam footage of the crash. The exact moment he realized his own camera system, the one he'd bragged about installing to catch thieves, had betrayed him. As they led him to the cruiser, he looked back at the house and saw me in the window. I held up my phone, showing him the QR code I'd generated. He didn't know what it was yet, but he would. The QR linked to a private server hosting every piece of evidence, ready to be released to his employer, his drinking buddies, and every single person who'd believed his lies. The cruiser pulled away, taking Darren to county lockup for processing. His tow truck sat abandoned in our driveway, hazard lights still flashing. I walked to the garage and found the spare key to the Lexus he'd hidden behind his toolbox, the one he'd sworn didn't exist when Mom needed the car last month. Physical evidence of yet another lie, another control tactic. The investigation was just beginning, but the foundation was set. Insurance fraud would trigger an audit of his tow yard's suspicious late-night cash jobs. The DUI would cost him his commercial license. The restraining order would keep him away while we dissected 3 years of financial abuse. But first, I had a video to make. The apology Darren had demanded. Just not the one he'd expected. The website took me 4 hours to build. Nothing fancy, just a clean, static page with a black background and a video player centered in the middle. The URL was randomly generated, impossible to guess, only accessible via QR code. At the top, in white text, the truth about the Lexus incident, a public apology. I'd edited the footage carefully. Every clip time-stamped, every transition smooth. The narrative was simple. Darren crashed his car drunk at 2:13:47 a.m., conspired to frame me, assaulted me when I came home, then tried to destroy my reputation. 27 minutes of undeniable evidence, ending with his arrest. The QR code itself became my weapon. I printed 100 copies on cardstock, each one labeled "Scan for Darren Carter's requested public apology." Tuesday morning. Darren's lawyer called Mom. "Mrs. Carter, your husband wants to resolve this quietly. He's willing to apologize if Riley drops the charges." Mom put him on speaker. I shook my head. "What kind of apology?" she asked. "A written statement acknowledging a misunderstanding about the car accident." I took the phone. "Tell Darren he has two options. Option 1. He posts a full public apology on the HOA Facebook page, admits to everything: the DUI, framing me, the assault, the financial theft, and I'll consider asking the DA for minimum charges. Option 2. I release everything to his employer, his insurance company's fraud department, the state licensing board for tow operators, and every single person on his Facebook friends list." That's extortion. No, counselor, that's negotiation. He wanted a public apology. He's getting one, either his or mine. I hung up and turned to my laptop. The cold storage drive contained 3 years of data, but I needed to organize it for maximum impact. Folder 1, Insurance Fraud Evidence. Folder 2, DUI and Crash. Folder 3, Domestic Violence Pattern. Folder 4, Financial Crimes. Each folder contained a README file explaining the evidence in simple terms, perfect for forwarding to authorities or posting online. Mom watched over my shoulder. The credit card statements. Riley. I didn't know he'd spent that much at casinos. $12,000 in 6 months, plus the cash advances, plus the money he borrowed from your retirement account. She sank into a chair. I need to call the bank. While Mom spent 3 hours on the phone freezing accounts and changing passwords, I executed phase 2. Darren had used Mom's name to open 3 credit cards without her knowledge, each now maxed out. But credit fraud leaves digital fingerprints, IP addresses, device IDs, application timestamps that coincided with Mom being at work. I compiled it all into a report for the credit bureaus, attaching police report numbers and fraud affidavits. Then I did something Darren hadn't expected. I called his mother. "Mrs. Carter, this is Riley. I wanted you to know what's actually happening before you hear Darren's version." I sent her the QR code. 20 minutes later, she called back sobbing. "That's my boy on the video, drunk driving. Oh, God, he could have killed someone. He needs help, Mrs. Carter. But first, he needs to face consequences." She agreed to provide a statement about Darren's past behavior, apparently. This wasn't his first rodeo with false accusations. Wednesday arrived with Darren still in county lockup, unable to make bail after the judge saw the evidence and deemed him a flight risk. His public defender called Mom again. "He'll do it," the lawyer said. "The public apology, but he wants assurances." "No assurances," I interrupted. "He posts the full truth, or I release everything at noon today." I'd already prepared my nuclear option, a mass email to 200 contacts, every client of his tow yard, every drinking buddy, every relative on Facebook. Subject line: important information about Darren Carter. Please read. The email contained the QR code and a brief explanation. 11:45 a.m. Darren's Facebook account posted, "I need to apologize publicly. I crashed my own car driving drunk early Monday morning and tried to blame my stepdaughter Riley. I then assaulted her when she came home from work. I've also been stealing money from my wife's accounts. I am seeking treatment and accepting responsibility for my actions." But I wasn't satisfied with his sanitized version. At noon, exactly, I posted my response. "Thank you for beginning to take responsibility. Darren, For those wanting the full story, he's still minimizing. Here's the complete evidence file. I included the QR code. Within an hour, the video had 300 views. The HOA Facebook group exploded. Mrs. Hallie posted, "We do not tolerate domestic violence in Maple Ridge. The board will be reviewing the Carter family's situation." Translation: Darren was now persona non grata in the neighborhood. His employer, Rapid Response Towing, called Mom. "We've seen the videos. Darren's terminated effective immediately. We're also reporting suspected insurance fraud related to multiple suspicious tows he arranged." The dominoes kept falling. State Farm opened a fraud investigation. The state licensing board suspended his commercial driving privileges pending review. 3 of Darren's drinking buddies called Mom to say they'd loaned him money he'd never paid back. Could they file police reports too? By Thursday, I'd secured Mom's finances completely. New bank accounts in her name only. Credit frozen with fraud alerts. Power of attorney documents drawn up giving me emergency authority if Darren somehow made bail and tried to retaliate. Jordan Pike called with updates. The DA's office is very interested. With the video evidence, they're charging him with felony insurance fraud, DUI, assault and battery, and false imprisonment for blocking you in the garage. He's looking at 3 to 5 years minimum. But the best part was the email I received from Tommy Toretti's lawyer. "Our client wishes to cooperate fully with authorities regarding Mr. Carter's illegal activities in exchange for immunity." Darren's network was eating itself alive, everyone scrambling to avoid being dragged down with him. The house felt different without his toxic presence. Mom stood straighter. Mason actually ate dinner with us instead of hiding in his room. Even the air seemed cleaner without the constant smell of bourbon and motor oil. I looked at the view counter on my website, 800 and climbing. The QR codes I'd left at the local bar, the courthouse, and strategically placed around the neighborhood were doing their job. Darren wanted a public apology. He got a public execution of his reputation instead. The HOA summer barbecue was Saturday, the kind of forced suburban gathering where everyone pretends their lawn is the greenest. This year, it had an electric undercurrent. Everyone knew Darren had made bail yesterday, and the protective order only kept him 500 feet from me, not from the neighborhood event at Riverside Park. I arrived at 5:30 p.m. with Mom and Mason, carrying potato salad I didn't remember making. My laptop bag hung heavy on my shoulder, the portable projector inside barely noticeable among the usual BBQ supplies. Darren stood by the grills, holding court with 3 guys who hadn't seen the videos yet. His left hand was wrapped in white gauze, a prop. Probably. He'd cleaned up, gotten a haircut, wore his best polo shirt, the performance of a wronged man. "Riley attacked me," he was saying, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Lost control when I confronted her about my car. Look at my hand, had to get 6 stitches. Mrs. Hallie crossed the pavilion to me. "Riley, perhaps you should—" "I'm staying," I said, setting up at a picnic table with clear sightlines to the projection screen the HOA used for movie nights. 6 p.m. More neighbors arrived. Darren's voice grew louder, emboldened by alcohol and audience. "She's always been unstable. Ask anyone. I tried to be a good father figure, but some people are just born bad." Mason started recording on his phone. Mom gripped my arm. "Don't, just wait." 6:20 p.m. Darren had gathered a crowd of 8 people, mostly new residents who'd moved in last year. He rolled up his sleeve to show a bruise on his forearm, self-inflicted, based on the angle. "She came at me with a tire iron," he announced. If I hadn't defended myself, that was my cue. I stood up, laptop already connected to the projector via HDMI. "Darren, since you're sharing your version, maybe everyone would like to see what actually happened." The pavilion went silent. Someone killed the music. Even the kids at the playground seemed to pause. "You can't," Darren started toward me, but Mr. Martinez stepped between us. "Let her speak," Martinez said. He'd been an Army MP before retiring. "We all want the truth." I clicked play. The projection screen lit up with Ring doorbell footage. There I was, standing passive in my driveway at 8:07 p.m. Monday. There was Darren, throwing the first punch, then the second. The beating continued for 43 seconds while I never raised a hand to defend myself. Gasps from the crowd. Someone whispered, "Jesus Christ!" "That's edited," Darren shouted. "Here's the raw file with metadata," I said, switching screens to show the file properties. But wait, there's more. Video 2. The Lexus dashcam footage. 2:13:47 a.m. Darren drunk behind the wheel, weaving down Maple Ridge Drive. The crash into the bollard. His slurred phone call to Tommy Toretti about the cover-up. Turn it off. Darren's face had gone purple. Video 3. The garage camera showing him at 6:52 a.m. carefully painting my bumper to frame me. The methodical destruction of evidence. The smile on his face as he worked. The crowd had grown to 50 people. Deputy Sloan had arrived, off-duty but alert, hand resting on his concealed carry. "For those wanting the complete file, scan this," I said, holding up my phone displaying the QR code. The screen behind me showed the same code, 10 feet tall. Phones came out everywhere. The suburban ritual of documentation. Mrs. Hallie was already typing furiously in the HOA group chat. Darren charged toward the projector, but stopped when Deputy Sloan moved to intercept. "Don't make this worse, Carter." "She's violating my privacy. This is harassment." "It's evidence in a criminal case," Jordan Pike said, stepping out from behind the drinks table. I'd texted him to attend, just in case. "All of which has been filed with the court and is now public record." I clicked to the final slide, a document on official letterhead. "This is the fraud investigation notice from State Farm. They're pursuing criminal charges for an estimated 100,000 in false claims over 8 years. Darren's 3 supporters had melted away. He stood alone by the grill, fists clenched, looking for an escape route that didn't exist. "Also," I continued, "Tommy Toretti's testimony includes records of 14 illegal tows Darren arranged to collect insurance kickbacks. The FBI's Financial Crimes Unit is now involved." Someone started slow clapping, then another. Not mockery solidarity. These people had lived next to us for years, heard the fights through the walls, seen Mom's bruises she'd blamed on clumsiness. "You fucking bitch," Darren snarled, spit flying. "I'll kill—" "Please continue," Deputy Sloan said, pulling out his phone. "Threatening murder in front of 50 witnesses and a law enforcement officer should add nicely to your charges." Darren's mouth snapped shut. He looked around the pavilion at the phone's recording, the projected evidence still glowing behind him, the neighbors' faces twisted in disgust. His eldest brother Mike approached from the parking lot, having just arrived. He took one look at the screen, showing Darren's drunk face at the moment of impact, and shook his head. "Mom was right about you," Mike said. "We're done enabling this. Don't contact the family again." The projector kept cycling through evidence credit card fraud, forged signatures, stolen retirement funds, each slide another nail. The QR code appeared between each one, like a commercial for justice. Darren backed away toward his truck, but 3 neighbors blocked his path. "You owe me $300 from poker night," one said. "You borrowed my tools and never returned them," added another. "You killed my dog," Mrs. Patterson said quietly. Everyone turned. "Said it was an accident when you backed over Rosie, but you were drunk then too, weren't you?" Darren ran. Actually ran. 50-year-old man in boat shoes sprinting across Riverside Park toward the street. Deputy Sloan followed at a walk, already calling it in. The projection screen went dark. I closed my laptop and found myself surrounded by neighbors offering support. Apologies for believing him. Promises to testify if needed. Mom stood by the dessert table, crying but smiling. Mason had uploaded his video with the title, "Stepfather Ruins Own Life at BBQ." It already had 200 views. Mrs. Hallie approached with an official HOA notice. The board voted. Darren Carter is permanently banned from all community events and facilities. And Riley, we're sorry we didn't act sooner. I looked at the empty grill station where Darren had stood, his spatula still on the ground where he'd dropped it. The show was almost over. Just one more act to go. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Sharp. The courthouse issued the permanent restraining order before Darren's lawyer could file an objection. Judge Harrison, a former prosecutor who'd seen enough domestic violence cases to recognize patterns, didn't even need the full presentation. "Mr. Carter," she said, looking over her glasses, "you're required to surrender all firearms within 24 hours, attend 52 weeks of anger management, and maintain a 1,000-foot distance from Ms. Monroe. Violation means immediate incarceration." Darren's lawyer tried to argue. "My client needs access to the marital home. Your client forfeited that right when he committed assault." Judge Harrison cut him off. Next case. By noon, the dominoes started their final cascade. State Farm's investigative unit had connected Darren to 47 fraudulent claims across 3 states. His old employer in Portland had reopened their missing inventory case. The IRS received an anonymous tip about unreported cash income from illegal tows. I sat in Jordan Pike's office as he walked me through the civil filing. Assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Defamation, we're seeking $200,000 in compensatory damages plus punitive. Will we get it? His tow yard has assets. Plus, there's a performance bond he posted with the state. We'll get every penny. Tuesday brought the criminal charges. The DA's office, armed with my spreadsheets and Tommy Toretti's testimony, filed 8 felony counts. The forensic accountant they'd assigned found another $20,000 in stolen funds we'd missed. Darren had been selling Mom's father's tools from the garage, piece by piece, through pawn shops. Ava from Larkspur Logistics called. "Riley, I've processed your FMLA paperwork. Full pay for 2 weeks. Then we can extend if needed. Also, the company's victim assistance program covers legal fees up to $10,000. I didn't know we had that. We don't advertise it, but it's there. I also spoke to corporate. They're interested in your security system setup. Might be a promotion opportunity, if you're interested." Wednesday's headlines in the North Cascadia Gazette: local tow operator charged in elaborate insurance fraud scheme. They'd used his booking photo eyes bloodshot, face twisted in rage. The article mentioned my evidence compilation, calling it methodical documentation that prosecutors dream of. His commercial driver's license was revoked that afternoon. The tow yard, already under scrutiny, lost its county contract. 18 employees suddenly unemployed because Darren couldn't keep his drinking and violence in check. Thursday, Mom received a call from Darren's mother. "Elaine, I'm sorry. I should have warned you properly. He did the same to Sarah, his ex-wife, and to a girlfriend before that. There's a pattern going back 20 years. Mom recorded the call legally, since North Cascadia was a one-party consent state. More evidence for the pile. The fraud investigation expanded. Darren had been double-billing insurance companies, charging for phantom tows, inflating repair estimates. One investigator called it the most comprehensive small-time fraud operation he'd seen. Small-time, but it added up to grand theft. Friday arrived with Darren's first mandated anger management class. He didn't show. Within 2 hours, his bail was revoked. Deputies found him at a bar in Riverside County, drunk and ranting about that bitch who ruined everything. The video of his arrest filmed by 3 bar patrons went viral on Mason's TikTok. Stepfather's Revenge Backfires Part 7 got 1 million views in 6 hours. Comments poured in from other victims of similar abuse, sharing their stories, finding strength in our documentation. The civil suit progressed faster than expected. Darren's lawyer, realizing the evidence was insurmountable, advised settlement. But I wasn't interested in quiet negotiations anymore. "We go to trial," I told Jordan. "Public record. Every piece of evidence entered officially." "That'll take months, maybe years." "I've got time, and backups of everything." Saturday morning, a group of Darren's former employees came by the house. Not for him, for Mom. "Ma'am, we wanted you to know we're starting our own towing company. Legitimate, licensed, honest. If you ever need anything." Mom cried. These men had watched Darren's behavior for years, but felt powerless to intervene. Now they were free to build something better. The financial forensics revealed more. Darren had taken out 3 loans using the house as collateral without Mom's knowledge, forged signatures on everything. Federal crime. The FBI added wire fraud to their growing list. By Sunday, I'd created a second website, the Darren Carter Files, a resource for domestic violence documentation. It included templates for spreadsheets, guides for evidence preservation, and links to legal resources. Anonymous, untraceable to me personally, but already helping others build their own cases. Project Brimstone had evolved from personal protection to public service. 3 years of suffering transformed into a blueprint for justice. The IRS announced their audit Tuesday. Every cash transaction, every unreported dollar, every falsified expense. Their preliminary findings suggested $600,000 in tax evasion over a decade. That meant federal prison, not county jail. Mom filed for divorce Wednesday, with Darren still in custody. North Cascadia's rapid divorce law meant it could be final in 30 days if uncontested, and Darren had no grounds to contest anything. Jordan called Thursday with news. Darren's trying to plea bargain. The DA's offering 15 years if he pleads guilty to everything. 15 years. With good behavior, he'd serve 8. But Riley, there's a condition. He wants you to take down the website. I thought of all the people who'd messaged me, thanking me for showing them it was possible to fight back with evidence instead of violence. No deal. The website stays. Darren's trial date was set for October. By then, I'd have even more evidence. The cold storage drive still held secrets I hadn't released, audio recordings of threats, photos of Mom's bruises she didn't know I'd documented, emails between Darren and his criminal network. But for now, it was enough. He was facing state charges, federal charges, civil lawsuits, and complete financial ruin. His reputation destroyed, his family estranged, his freedom evaporating. All because he'd thrown that first punch in front of a camera, too arrogant to realize he'd been documenting his own downfall for 3 years. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disappointment. October 15th, 9 a.m., the final hearing. Darren sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, shackled at the wrists and ankles. 8 months of jail food and no alcohol had deflated him. He looked smaller, grayer, defeated. Judge Martinez presided, known for her zero tolerance on domestic violence. She'd reviewed all 800 pages of evidence, watched every video, studied every spreadsheet cell in Project Brimstone. Mr. Carter, before we proceed with sentencing, do you have anything to say? Darren's lawyer whispered urgently, but Darren shoved him away. Yeah, I got something to say. That girl set me up. She planned this whole thing. Mr. Carter, Judge Martinez interrupted. Are you suggesting Ms. Monroe forced you to drive drunk at 2:13:47 Silence. Did she force you to assault her on camera to steal $47,000 to commit insurance fraud across 3 states? Darren's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. I've reviewed the evidence, including this. Judge Martinez held up a USB drive. The director's cut, as Ms. Monroe calls it. Mr. Carter, would you like to see the footage of you staging the crime scene at 6:52 a.m. on the morning in question? The bailiff wheeled in a monitor. The courtroom watched in silence as the garage camera footage played Darren meticulously applying paint to my bumper, checking his phone for instructions he'd written himself, smiling as he worked. But then came footage I hadn't released before, audio from inside the house, legally recorded in my own room, picking up Darren's voice through the thin walls. Once I blame Riley, insurance pays out. Elaine won't say nothing she never does. Kid's going down for this. His lawyer's head dropped into his hands. Mr. Carter, Judge Martinez said, you're hereby sentenced to 12 years for fraud, 3 years for assault, 5 years for tax evasion sentences to run concurrently. Total of 12 years state prison, followed by 5 years probation. You're ordered to pay full restitution of $237,000 to your victims. The gavel came down like thunder. Darren turned to look at me one last time, but I wasn't looking at him. I was looking at Mom, finally free, and Mason. recording this moment for his channel that now had 2 million subscribers documenting our journey. Additionally, Judge Martinez continued, this court orders that all evidence in this case remain public record, accessible to anyone who needs it for their own protection. Ms. Monroe's documentation serves as a masterclass in standing up to abuse through legal means. As they led Darren away, he tried one more time. Elaine, tell them it wasn't like that. Mom stood up, spine straight for the first time in 3 years. It was exactly like that. Darren. And worse. Riley only showed what she could prove. The rest, we'll take those secrets to our graves. The courtroom erupted as Darren broke down, finally realizing the full scope of his destruction. The big, tough man who'd terrorized our family reduced to sobbing as they dragged him through the back door. Jordan Pike shook my hand. The civil judgment stands at $400,000 with punitive damages. His assets are frozen, the tow yards being liquidated. You and your mother will be compensated. What about his appeal? What appeal? He just confessed on record. It's over. Riley, you won. Outside the courthouse, news vans waited. I'd agreed to one interview with a local station, hoping to help others in similar situations. Ms. Monroe, what would you say to someone trapped in an abusive situation? I looked directly into the camera. Document everything. Save it in multiple places. Build your case quietly and thoroughly. And when you're ready, when you're safe, use their own arrogance against them. Abusers think they're invincible. Prove them wrong. The reporter asked about the website, now getting 50,000 hits daily. Will you keep it running forever? It costs me $40 a month to host. If it helps even one person escape what we went through, it's worth it. Mom appeared beside me, holding the deed to our house finally, legally, only in her name. We're going home, she said. Our home. As we walked to the car, Mason ran up with his phone. Riley, the video of Darren crying just hit 10 million views. Comments are brutal. I thought about asking him to take it down, then remembered Darren's Facebook post calling me unstable, the bruises he'd given Mom, the years of torment. Good, I said. Let it stand as a warning. The drive home felt different, lighter. The autumn sun cast everything in gold, and for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't checking my mirrors for Darren's truck. Back at the house, the garage had been converted into Mason's studio space. The cameras I'd installed for protection now helped him create content about surviving domestic abuse, reaching millions of young people who needed to hear it was possible to escape. Mom had started therapy, finally processing years of manipulation. She'd even started dating again a kind man from her book club who brought her flowers and never raised his voice. As for me, Larkspur Logistics promoted me to Security Systems Director. I design protection protocols now, teaching companies how to document and prevent internal theft and fraud. My presentation always starts the same way. Let me tell you about Project Brimstone. The cold storage drive still sits in my safe deposit box, containing 3 years of evidence. I don't need it anymore, but I keep it as a reminder that patience and preparation can defeat violence and rage. That documentation is the best weapon against gaslighting, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't served cold. It's served with timestamps, metadata, and triple redundancy backup. That metal door sliding shut behind me at the courthouse, that was the sound of Darren's life locking away, while ours finally opened up to possibility. The house is quiet now, peaceful. The only cameras running are Mason's ring lights. The only spreadsheets I maintain track grocery lists and vacation plans. The only fights are over who gets the last slice of pizza. This is what victory looks like, not dramatic. Just normal. Beautifully, wonderfully normal. Thank you all for listening to my story. I'd love to know where in the world you're hearing this. Drop a comment below and let's connect. Please subscribe to the channel if these real-life stories resonate with you, and share your own thoughts or experiences. Your comments might help someone else who needs to hear they're not alone in their struggle.